Guys, I'm going to walk you through my current thoughts on aerodynamic testing. It's quite an interesting topic right now because there's a lot of different thoughts floating around, but I'm going to share mine. Whether they're right or wrong, you can decide. I share the types of testing you can do with the prices, and most importantly, I'll share my 5 takeaways from the first time aerodynamic testing myself and how I actually saved 20 watts doing the testing. And how I saved those 20 watts may actually surprise you. Stay tuned for number 5 to find out how. So 3 types of testing is basically outdoor testing, like a Gizmo or no-show device. Those devices, no-show is commercially available, Gizmo is not. If you want to use a Gizmo, you can contact Brian Stover at Accelerate 3 Coaching. He offers the testing alongside Mark Gravelin, who actually made the device. I think it's an excellent mode of testing. Comes in around $700 for basically a 4 to 8 hour equivalent of testing. Velodrome is another option a lot of people tend to use. It comes in around $1,800 with a coach to do that for 4 hours. And then lastly, obviously an approach that everyone looks at as the pinnacle of testing is the wind tunnel, which is around $3,000. So not the most effective use of funds. If you're just starting in aerodynamics, you're probably going to do perfectly fine doing the Gizmo device, which gives you quite accurate comparative data set so that you can actually make some changes that may be useful for you in the future. So which is the most effective? I actually tend to appreciate the Gizmo device, outdoor testing. You can make lots of changes, spend a lot of time, and be a bit more, be in a similar position that you would be riding outside on a regular course and see how your CDA is reflected in that environment. So highly recommend doing that kind of testing. $700, can't go wrong. And doing it a few times a year is probably not a bad idea if you make adjustments to your position. So having a more cost-effective solution to play around with minor adjustments is probably not the worst idea to do. So thoughts on aerodynamics. Most people don't test. I think it would surprise a lot of people how many top-level pros do not test or test very seldom. Most people just go off of what other people are doing, see that they're doing some testing and like, sweet, that's a cool idea, that makes sense. Which I don't think that's a bad idea, but it's probably not the most refined approach. It's going to get you so far, but then for some minute adjustments, like I'll show you today, you might not find with other people's testing. So, but the one tip that I do have that's gotten me pretty far up to this point is just think logically, do some research, look at what other people have tested and what their own thoughts are, because a lot of the testing is your own creativity on what you're going to test, how you're going to test it, and hope that you're going to get faster. So once, like if you were to take the absolute best person ever, the best CDA, like Remco I think has a crazy CDA, if you were to take him and take him to a wind tunnel, what would he test? So I think that's a good way to think about it, is just test what you think might be faster, narrow your front end, compact down your side view so that it looks like it's going to cut through the wind quickly. And if you think it does, it probably will. And once you do that and refine that approach, then chances are you might be ready for the wind tunnel or even the Gizmo device to be able to test some of those minute theories that may save you a few watts here and there after you have a good baseline. So also take CDA with a grain of salt, whether you do any 3 of these tests. I think the most important thing you do is get a baseline, have a good baseline, and then you try and improve from there. And what that CDA is, it doesn't really matter. If you have an idea of how fast you've gone in a set position, then you change it a little bit, then chances are you're going to go faster. So that would be my take. Who knows if that's a good way to look at it, but I think it's an appropriate way that is getting me little bit closer to the front of races bit by bit. So now for my 5 takeaways. I'm going to start by probably the least effective to the most effective. So if you want to skip through this video a bit, if it's too long for you, go for it. Go to number 5. Take the bait right away from me. So number 5, we did a few tests reaching in 15 millimeters, then another 15 millimeters, and my reach was quite far out the way what we tested. So bringing it in 15 millimeters actually saved about 10 watts based on the tests that we did. And then another 15 millimeters just went back the opposite way and negative 5 watts from the original method. So my takeaway from that is that yes, bringing reach in and out can play a role in your CDA, but what I noticed was when I came in too far was my back kind of felt like it crunched up and my body position went up and my shoulders probably went a bit more wide. So that is probably one of the reasons why the CDA rose again. So if you're doing just a logical aerodynamic test, you can probably just look at your front end, bring it in or out, and try and make yourself as compact as possible. 2, we did a test without the 1 liter bottle in my chest and without the 1 liter bottle behind my elbows. Without the bottles and with the bottles, it made a negligible difference. So I can probably safely assume that 2 liters of fluids isn't costing me that much with it set up in my chest and basically in front of my elbows. Number 3, drop. This one might actually surprise you. It actually really shocked me. I have my front end quite high, but we dropped 25 millimeters on the front to see if that would make any sort of difference, and went to the extreme to try and see like, okay, if this makes a difference, then there's maybe something with taking off 10 millimeters or 15 millimeters, but we took 25 millimeters out of my stack height and it made no change in the power I produced or CDA I produced. So it was literally the exact same number, and yeah, no difference with the stack height. So I just left mine. So number 4, this is an interesting one, which I've been toying with a lot of different helmets. I've tried a ton of different helmets, using them to see how they look on my body. And the 2 helmets that I came down to were the Met Drone, which is what I used at Michigan 70.3, and the Kask Mistral, but in a large size. So the Met Drone, the idea behind the helmet is that it's a big helmet so that when you're in your tuck down Aero position, the wind kind of goes around the helmet and around your shoulder. And so it's making your front end a bit more narrow. So with that said, when you get the medium Kask helmet, it doesn't quite do that. So that's what I did at first. And then I realized when you got the larger helmet that you actually get the same benefit as a Met Drone. So that's why I actually used the Met Drone in Michigan 70.3. But then I switched in Los Cabos 70.3 to the Kask Mistral in a large size, because you get a nice tail on the back end of the Kask Mistral, but you also get the benefit of the Met Drone being a bigger size. So that's a cool thing, and I did do testing with the Gizmo device on it, and it saved me 2 or 3 watts with the Kask Mistral. So that was quite a not a shocking thing. I kind of expected it, but it was nice to reaffirm that that was the right thought. So as you can see on that thought, it was just my research and my thoughts and how it looked actually were correct with how the testing went. So it's actually not a bad method to go that direction as well. And last but not least, the grand finale where I actually saved 20 watts was my angle on my aero bars were at 20 degrees. We dropped them to 10 degrees and I literally went drastically improved. It may actually be more than 20 watts, but we're calling it 20 watts here for conservative nature of not a perfect system for testing, but a system nonetheless. So we dropped that to 10 degrees, and I'm not 100% sure why it tests faster, but one of the thoughts I have around it is that when you drop your bars, the wind is coming above your body. So what that does is then make the bottle in my chest actually effective in getting the wind under my hips and under my seat and throwing the wind behind my body. Whereas when my bars are up, it acts as almost like a wall, and then it throws the wind under the bars and into my legs, which is a really turbulent area. So when you have your bars up, you're kind of either deciding to throw the wind below your body into your legs or above into your chest. Both areas aren't great, but with the bottle system in there, it probably makes it a better system of throwing the air above. We didn't have a chance to test the 0, 10, or 15 degree options, or 0, 5, and 15 degree options, but it would be interesting to see if the 0 degree option would actually confirm this theory, or if the 10 degree is actually better. Because there's a lot of factors that go into it, not just the airflow, but also your body position and how your body changes with the degree, which probably my shoulders rolled in more and it closed up more. So there's probably more than just the airflow coming at me, but yeah, that's my thoughts around that anyways. So take it for what you will. So summarizing all that jargon, basically the biggest savings came from dropping from 20 degrees to 10 degrees down. So what I did was actually using calf sleeves when I can in wetsuit legal swims. I'm using toe covers, which sounds like it saves between 2 and 3 watts, based on probably a not very aerodynamic race shoe. The Kask Mistral saves 2 or 3 watts, so I'm definitely chipping away on little savings here and there, and happy to see that. Brian also mentioned that some of the other testing we could do in the future is just bringing my saddle forward more and up, which would just get me in a bit of a tighter position. So I actually, after the testing, I moved my seat forward 15 millimeters and up 5 millimeters, which I've done a few rides on it now, and it feels really comfortable, and I'm quite positive that it would be a faster setup. So at Michigan 70.3, I rode 2 hours and 2 minutes and for 90.3 kilometers, and that was at a 326 watt average. So, and that got me 5 minutes back of the best bike split of the day. And so as I broke down this data, I looked at the changes I made. I brought my arms in about 5 millimeters on each side, brought my seat up 15 millimeters or 5 millimeters and forward 15 millimeters. And then I got the Kask Mistral. With all of those changes, not very many, but some significant changes that could really save me a lot of watts. I also dropped the front end just 10 millimeters just because I felt a little bit high in Michigan 70.3. It felt just a little bit high, even though it may not save me any watts. It's just going to be a little bit more comfortable being 10 millimeters. So if I just add 10 watts and take the 25 watt savings that I had, that's going to save me the 5 minutes that I lost in Michigan, just simply on aerodynamics and 10 watts extra on the power, which I felt like I had in me to give, but just not on the day. So with that said, Indian Wells 70.3 is up next, and I hope some of these aerodynamic advantages help me there. It's a flat bike course, which I'm a bigger guy. It's going to benefit me. So if I can throw down that 330, 340 watts, hopefully I can be right near the front of the race and start the run off on a positive note. So hope to see you guys there, and hope you learned something in this. If you have any questions, leave it in the comments. I'm happy to share any of the details, any of my research, anything that I found. If you have any questions about aerodynamics and want to shoot me a photo of your setup, I'd be happy to share any insights that I have.